Hello and a very warm welcome to the Audi R8 LMS Cup. We're here at the Shanghai International Circuit, Sean Henshelwood, and let's take a look at the championship standings. Alessio Picariello, the Belgian, has been storming away. He is 47 points clear at the top of the title. Now, technically, he's not going to be able to wrap it up today, but he struggled in qualifying. So has this opened up the championship race once again?
I think sometimes we forget that a lot of these young drivers are just that. They're young. They can't draw on the experience of someone like Marchi Lee and Alex Young. We often talk about Alex Young as a three-time champion. He comes in, he has a bad day on day one on a Saturday, and he comes back Sunday and he blows everybody to the weeds and has a win. So he's capable of recovering from that. It could be that the pressure's got just a little bit to Alessio Picariello this weekend. If he wins both races, there's a chance he could leave tomorrow night as the 2017 champion. But currently, he hasn't been able to match the drivers in practice at the top of the field. And how about Dries Van Thor? That's just an incredible story.
That's right. A young 18-year-old Belgian coming in for the first time into Shanghai. He certainly doesn't have a whole lot of experience elsewhere in Asia either, and he's got pole position for today's race. I mean, what a story, but in particular, because he missed some of the time earlier this weekend.
Well, that's staggering, isn't it? He did one practice session, first time he'd ever been. He missed the second practice session completely, and there you are.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, also elsewhere in the championship, we had Mitch Gilbert, who is 47 points, as we said, behind. He's second. He's also struggled a little bit. He's halfway down the grid for today's race. So the title rivals, once again, not necessarily helping themselves in this bid to overhaul another Belgian, Alessio.
Well, they really need to get their act together and do something about it. Martin Rump, we saw him last year, three-time winner, very narrowly missed the championship, as did Alessio Picariello, but really they have to get their act together. So let's take a look back at the highlights from Korea. Of course, that's where the action really got very, very interesting, and that's where it really was intense in the 2015 season. You remember that great battle between Alex Young and Alessio Picariello. But here we are now looking back at South Korea for the round of the most previous round of the championship of the Audi R8 LMS Cup.
Well, Martin Rump was pole position for round 5, and it's a bit of a slippery race for the Estonian, wasn't it, Sean?
Certainly was, and he had a fair bit of work to do. And Martin Rump looked like he had off the start. He said it was a little bit slippery too. There had been a little bit of precipitation, a little bit of rain just beforehand. You see the windscreen wipers on for Alessio Picariello. Hadn't had a great qualifying run again, and here was the passing move that Alex Young made. Well, it was a bit of a tap-tap, knock-knock, toot-toot, I'm here. And Alex Young worked his way forward, and then Mitch Gilbert thought, well, I'm going to have a bit of a lend to this too. But the one that was on the move, there he is on screen in the number 8 Tita racing entry. That was young Sean Thong from Hong Kong. So he actually managed to get through, and this is part of the reason why. What a tank slapper. Full lock left, full lock right, full lock left again. So he managed to hang on to it. He said it was a bit messy afterwards and a little uncomfortable, but I managed to keep it straight. And we lost positions, and that really did blow things out a little bit for Martin Rump.
And Sean, you'll be happy to know that we have submitted an application for tank slapper to be in the Oxford English Dictionary.
Excellent. That's fantastic, because that is an important term. It's well versed with the Southern Hemisphere, I'll let you know. And of course, off the second start, Mitch Gilbert, and that was Frankie Chung, who was on the inside and had pole. He did a great job. And a little bit testy further back in the pack. But how about Alessio Picariello, if you don't mind, alongside his teammate from the Absolute Racing entry, the Absolute Racing team, and took the position away. This was Stefan Riquelme playing knock-knock with KOU. And further back, you could see that Andrew Kim, the other South Korean who was subbing for Marchi Lee, didn't have such a great time. But up front, he's having a good time, isn't he? It's Alessio Picariello.
That's right.
And that signature move on the roof of the car. There it is.
Seen that somewhere before. I can't quite place it, but no. 25 points from that race, but crucially picked up 12 points in round 5, giving him a total of 126. And that's obviously, as we said, 47 points clear than the other categories. David Chen also impressing in the AM Plus category, and your Thai friend, Mr. Burit Birambakdi, currently leading in the amateur class.
He has done a very good job so far this year, because this is his debut at this level of competition. Had run in the past with GTC level competition, had done quite well in the GT Asia series, but certainly this year in the Audi R8 LMS Cup, Burit Birambakdi has been doing a very good job, and he has really stepped up this year, and it's good to see him running at the top of the AM classifications.
Well, we can go now down to Sophie, who was just going to be ready in just a moment's time down on the grid to get some of the latest news. But we are just a few moments away from race time here at the Shanghai International Circuit, Sean. And Sophie is now with Martin Kuhl, and we can join her now.
Martin, welcome to the show with this beautiful weather here in Shanghai Circuit. We know that the championship is getting more and more fierce, especially LSU, who dominated the race, started from 6th place. So it seems to be going to be a very exciting race this afternoon, right?
Correct. Cars were very close, drivers were very close together in the qualifying. We have an exciting new driver, Dries Vantor, first time racing with us. He's still in the in for the championship of Blancpain GT in Europe. He's now here for the first time in Asia. He's starting from the first position. Very exciting. And Martin Rump, he just showed also a very strong race in China GT. The circuit suits him. He's in P2. So I expect really a lot of exciting race.
Yeah, me too. Let's just see who can threaten the championship title that has been dominated by LSU. And now it's our time. I'll also cross back to you guys.
Thanks very much, Sophie. Well, let's talk about the starting grid for today's race. We mentioned at the top of the show, Dries Vantor, 18 years old, and he stormed to pole position by 0.3 of a second. It was looking at one point that it was going to be even a wider margin at the top, Sean.
Well, storming's a good word because he missed a whole session. He's never been here before. Was right there in the first session, mere hundredths off Martin Rump at the top of the timesheets. Didn't go to the second time session. Turned up for qualifying and bang. There we are, a bit of a new record, and he's right at the top of the timetable. It was impressive. So very, very good job.
Bit of a story there, actually. We were talking to him earlier, and he was at the first free practice, and then his bag was late arriving into Shanghai. He went to the airport in time to pick it up and then come back for free practice. But he had a bit of an issue with the driver. I think it was a parking ticket, a sort of a bit of another issue as well, which we won't go into. But anyway, the taxi was delayed on the return trip, which meant that he basically missed most of that free practice session. But it didn't matter, did it? Because there he is, straight into qualifying, straight on it.
Well, interestingly, the name Vantor is well known to Audi fans because Lawrence Vantor, if you go back not quite 12 months, was the man who won the Macau Grand Prix. Now, we did toss around whether or not we should mention it. He did win it inverted on the roof of his Audi R8, walked away from it afterwards quite safely. But this is his younger brother who has been racing in Europe. And you spoke to him just recently. He dominated the most recent round of the Blancpain GT series in Europe. And in an Audi, of course, so knows how these cars work. These young drivers, very, very good. We had a bit of a joke with Martin Rump, of course, 3-time winner last year, needs to get his championship going. I said, you used to be the young guy. Now there's a new level of young guys coming through. So fantastic.
We mentioned Martin Rump. He is alongside Dries on the front row of the grid. He's raced here 4 times in the Cup with 3 wins, Martin Rump. So he is definitely going to fancy himself to take another win here today, but it's not going to have it his own way. And then, of course, further back, we have Alex Young in 3rd position. Now, he has raced every single time in the Cup, and he's got some pretty impressive stats. 5 wins, 11 podiums in 18 races. Is that right, Sean?
You're trying to cut my lunch, aren't you? I do all the work, and you just rattle it off. Actually, it's interesting. The second most successful driver here is Martin Rump. 4 starts, or so 6 starts, 3 wins. In fact, it's interesting. We are joining China GT Championship this weekend, and some of the drivers, Martin Rump, Alex Young, and Frankie Chung are doing double duty. They've just finished their first 1-hour race. They did half-hour stints each. So they're race fresh, they're race ready, they're warm, they're fired up, they're ready to go out the gate. And that could work for them or it could work against them. It'll be interesting to see.
It's a very tight schedule for some of these drivers. They do get that extra time on the track and they're right up to speed, as it were, but perhaps tiredness comes into play. But it is just a shorter race.
Sounds like we have Emanuele Pirro, former Le Mans winner, down on the grid with Sophie.
So join us live is 5-time Le Mans winner, Emanuele. Welcome to the show, and fantastic phenomenon joined by you. And we know that this time before a race, from a professional's perspective, would you like to share with us what drivers can think about it and what kind of advice you can give to them?
I think from any perspective, before the start is a very emotional moment. regardless whether you're a pro, whether you are the best or you're an amateur. It's a very, very special time. You need concentration, a lot of people around you. It's really a cool time, and we are lucky to share it with the other drivers. When the flag drops or when the light goes and the race starts, then concentration is a lot easier, but now it's difficult. So let us enjoy the race.
Thank you so much, Mawali. And now it's our time to cross back to our panel.
Well, you know, a guy who's won multiple Le Mans is going to be well capable of giving you some good opinion of what's going to happen during these races. And Emanuele has been here before. We have seen him a number of times in Asia, so it's great to see him back on the grid and keeping these drivers all fired up and inspired. So be interesting to see how this race goes. It's an interesting starting line, and again, we're talking about Alessio. He is starting from position 6. He's got a bit of work ahead of him, but he started further back in the grid at South Korea too. Didn't take long for him to get to the front of the field. I think it was, what, 4 corners, and he was at the front of the field going around the outside of his teammate Frankie Chung, so that's not really going to slow him down.
Well, sure, we are here at the Shanghai International Circuit, of course, one of the big circuits on the F1 calendar, has been for a decade or more. What are some of the crucial points of this this circuit here in Shanghai?
Well, typically that first 1, 2, 3, 4 corner complex, hard right-hander, left-hander that turns back on itself, that sees a lot of drama through those opening couple of corners. And, of course, onto the back straight, the Parabolica, similar sort of shaped corner, 12, 13, and that does have a big impact too. So let's take a look at this 5.5 kilometre Shanghai International Circuit. There we are, Shanghai in China, and 16 turns, clockwise rotation, a Hermann Tilke designed circuit. And the turn 1, 2, 3, 4, often referred to as the yin-yang section, and through to 4, 5, 6, and then we're on to turn 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and through that long back straight, 1.1 kilometres, and through to the final corner and home. So it is, as you say, it's the home of the Chinese Formula 1 Grand Prix. It is a wide open circuit, but still, as we saw last year, Frankie Chung, prime example, very experienced driver, a big accident after just what looked like a very innocuous touch with Sean Thong, and that fired him into the fence. So whilst there might be some runoff, it's not always there.
And just a word on Frankie, this is of course his home circuit. He hasn't always performed well. He's often done better away from Shanghai, outside of China, than he has done in front of those home fans. He said to me before, it's not about the pressure. He doesn't get tight because he's racing. It would really mean a lot for him to get a win here, but he just hasn't been able to put it together.
No, he hasn't. 18 starts for him too. No wins at Shanghai International Circuit, as you alluded to. He seems to be fast in practice and qualifying, but doesn't quite come together in the race. Again, he's just run towards the front of the field in that final China GT race, so he could use that to advantage. So,
well, he starts from position number 4. Just recapping that grid, we have Dries van Thor and Martin Rump on the front row. Then Alex Young and Frankie Chung on the second row. Then comes a couple of youngsters, Sean Thong and, of course, the championship leader, Alessio Picariello in 6th position. Mitch Gilbert, David Chen, the young amateur who's done very well, Chinese drivers.
TSRT, yes, indeed. He's been very exciting as the next generation of drivers coming through the throng into a series like the Audi R8 LMS Cup, and very excited by what he has to offer. And we saw him qualify on the front row. I think it was for round 6 at South Korea. So keep a close eye on that gold, green and red TSRT Audi. They could really figure in the race here today.
Well, he completes the top 8. Then we have KOU from Korea, Jeffrey Lee in 10th position, Kyunghui Lim from Hong Kong in 11th, Sun Jin Zhu in 12th, and Burun Bakdi rounds out the grid. So we're just in the warm-up lap here, and it will, of course, be the first race of the weekend. Is always a rolling start, and that will be interesting to see how the youngster at the front of the field, the young Belgian Dries van Thor, controls the field coming around the top. He'll have some, Martin Rump alongside, and then a very experienced campaigner, Alex Young, looking to get the jump behind.
Well, we're talking about Alex Young's won here 5 times in the Cup and 11 times on the podium. That's better than 1 in every 2 races that he does. So keep a close eye on the reigning champion as he is now. He kind of conceded the championship a couple of rounds ago, but he still is right in the mix. So very good. There is Mitch Gilbert. Of course, has been quite strong this year too in the Audi racing machine. And he is starting from position number 7. I was just checking my my monitor there to make sure that those details are in fact accurate. That was Birupir Bhakti in the chrome and black machine, also run by Absolute Racing, further back in the field. But Dries Van Thor, the all-green, well, it's number 2 this weekend, Castrol Racing entry, run by WRT.
And it's a car that's seen success here going back a few years.
Absolutely.
Rahel Frey, the Swiss Miss as we like to call her. Also won here in Shanghai. Wouldn't it be, well, given the form that he's shown, it wouldn't be a huge surprise if that car was winning here again.
Back on the top step of the podium, done a good job. Taken over, of course, from Stefan Riquelme, the Swiss driver who'd been involved. He was on the podium for a couple of the races we saw, certainly at Suzuka. He was in a great battle towards the front of the field there too. So nice to see that car back towards the front of the field. And of course, a famous livery in the Audi R8 LMS Cup's 6 seasons. And alongside there is the 18 entry, the car that won 3 times last year. And that is, of course, Martin Rump from Estonia.
Now, weather-wise this morning, it was a little bit spotty with some rain. It looks to be dry at the moment, so let's hope for the driver's sake that it is at least consistent. There's nothing worse than back and forth with the weather conditions.
No, that does make things very, very challenging. Drivers will admit they either want it wet or they want it dry. Then you know what you're dealing with. When it changes, and often it can change from one end of the circuit to the other, that is diabolical. And we saw that, we've seen that in the past with the Cup. When it starts to rain partway through an event, it makes it very, very difficult. So they're starting to get in an order ready for this rolling start. Field controlled by the young man at the front, Dries Van Thor, in that green Castrol Audi R8 LMS. Alongside him, another young man, call him a veteran just about now, 3-time winner here at Shanghai International Circuit, Martin Rump. Will they get a start as they come to the line? They're in a pretty good order. You should expect a start, and they're away. Who's got the jump? Van Thor has definitely got the jump. And so too, Alex Young, the black car on the left of screen. That is the Audi R8 LMS entry. He's dived up the inside of Martin Rump, closed the door on Rump. These two had a little bit of contact in the race just half an hour ago in China GT, but they're not going to do that this time. They've got a long way to go. There's a championship on the wire here. They want race wins, and Martin's hung in there, gone up the side. Can Frankie make something out of this and take the position away? Well, look, he's up to position 5 already. It's the championship points leader, Alessio Piccarello, and he's done a great job to get that position. Sean Thong has been jumped off the start by the young Belgian, the championship points leader. As now Alex Young looks to go around the outside of an area he knows only too well that bought him some drama at the end of the 2016 season.
Well, Alex going up there in a pretty dramatic start considering no positions changed. Martin Rump looked to have gone far too far wide, but managed to hold on to that position, and currently just now losing, after a few turns, losing that second position to Alex Young, who's now right behind Dries Van Thor at the front of the field.
You can never discount the 41-year-old, the Malaysian master. Oh, we've seen some of this sort of action going before. Now, these are teammates. That is Alessio Piccarello and Frankie Chung, as they range up on the tail of Martin Rump, trying to get temperature into these Control Pirelli tyres. As Sean Thong tried to make a move around the outside there of Alessio Piccarello. Makes it very, very interesting as they fire through the parabolica and onto the main straight. Now push to pass. Those lights flashing on the side. There is a number. They have about 5 of them, the pro drivers at the front of this field, as the windscreen wipers now start to use. That is an additional 50 horsepower for up to 10 seconds. And Frankie Cheng is trying to make a move on Martin Rump. A little bit of contact as they go down to turn 14. And concertina effect. It looked like, good, feed you off, keep it going. Martin's on the wet grass, and that's not what he wanted. He wanted to come off the front row and get himself another victory. That looks like it's well out of the question as we look at the Audi career entry of KOU a little bit further back in the field. Immediately ahead of him is David Chen in the TSRT entry. But up front, Dries Van Thor is hanging on tough and leading this field around. Nice job by Frankie Cheng. He might put us to shame this weekend and get himself to that top step of the podium.
Well, Sean Thong has also benefited there, taking the position back from Alessio Piccarello and then jumping up, of course, after Martin Rump's misfortune. So he's now up to 4th, having started in 5th, but slipping down to 6th position. And Rump so close to keeping it together and just about maintaining control, but then just lost it at the end.
Here's a restart, the replay of the restart, replay of the start, in fact, and that is Dries Van Thor leaping across in front of the pack. And the big mover off the start certainly was Alex Young. And he tried to make a position change, but Martin Rump hung out wide, and the two of them went side by side, the winningest drivers from last season. A little bit of contact, and that nearly opened the door for Frankie Chung, who was watching closely behind. Of course, the Chinese star, pioneer of motorsport in the region, certainly in GT3 competition, has managed to move his way up to position number 3. Sean Thong now trying to drive an inside line to stay clear of Alessio Piccirillo. He is in this championship hunt. There's very little, about 7 points separating positions 2 through 5 in this championship, and Sean Thong is right in this thing. A lot of them concede that perhaps Alessio Piccirillo has this championship wrapped up, as he's done the crossover, taken the position away from Sean Thong on the run through the parabolic. He's on to push to pass. So too is Mitch Gilbert. Now, so too is Sean Thong. He was probably a little bit late onto it. He's going to have to run a protective line down to turn 14 and try to retain that position, whilst Mitch Gilbert does everything he can to lock in under the rear wing of his Absolute Racing teammate, his stablemate, and that is Alessio Piccirillo. Sean Thong's dived up the inside, a late move, big move under brakes. That was nice, but he hasn't been able to hold the Belgian out, and that may well backfire. It's opened the door now too for David Chen, who's got out the inside of Mitch Gilbert. That may not be the best place to be. No, he's backed out of that one. That was a very wise move from the young Chinese driver, and he's allowed the action to unfold cleanly in front of him, and Alessio Piccirillo up to position number 4.
And Sean, one of the things we haven't talked about yet is the weight to ballast carrying on from round 6 in Korea. Alessio Piccirillo with 50 kilograms as a passenger in his car, then Frankie Chung with 35 kgs and Sean Thong with 20 kilograms. That obviously comes into play, particularly as the tyres do start to go during the later laps. So that is something for viewers at home to be thinking about, and that will affect how these positions are switching around here.
There's also an advantage too. You see the windscreen wipers are on. The track's getting a little bit more slippery. That extra weight will push the car more heavily into the tarmac, and it will play as some kind of advantage. So it may not work so badly. We have to go back 12 months to Martin Rump. He's the only driver, one of few drivers, I think from memory, in the modern era of the Cup to take a 50-kilo penalty and win a race with that additional weight. So it's not so bad, it seems, here if you've got your car set up just right. We talk about Martin Rump. He'll be trying to work his way back up the order in this field. He's punching out some pretty quick laps, and he'll be hoping to try and make amends for what has just happened. Now, who knows? If it rains suddenly, the drivers could come into pit lane, have to change to wet weather tyres. That could mix things up. But you have to say, the man out front, how comfortable does he look? Dries Van Thorp in the Castrol Racing Audi. Very comfortably clear now, up by about 4 seconds, just a tad over after the 6th lap. So nice job by him.
And I was going to say, from qualifying, there was one particularly quick lap that he managed to put together which got him that pole position. He did say afterwards that he wasn't able to repeat it, so if there was one kind of opening for the other drivers to get back, and it was perhaps he doesn't yet have that consistency around this circuit, but with every lap he's getting more and more experience. That's a very steep learning curve for him, for the youngster, and as we can see here, he's clearly putting it together, and well, the consistency so far has been exemplary.
It has been fantastic, and that's what you want from a young driver coming through the ranks. We've often seen the younger siblings of experienced drivers come through and not quite match their older brother or sister, but certainly Dries Van Thorp has been very impressive. No prior knowledge, jumps in the car, goes out the gate, nearly takes the top spot in his opening practice session after 14 laps, mind you, and then comes back for qualifying after missing the 2nd practice session and sticks the thing very comfortably on pole position. Windscreen wipers on, Alex Young, 2 old stagers. I'm going to upset another driver now. We're calling Frankie Chung an old stager, but as I said to him the other day, you're getting to be a veteran in this series now. You've had a lot of experience. You'll be looking to try and get yourself back onto the podium. And he's had some hot and cold years. Of course, lost the championship by 1 point 2 seasons ago.
That's right.
To Alex Young. So he has been in the mix for a number of years, and admitted he'd lost during 2016 a lot of his confidence. Of course, that was the introduction of this car, the Generation 2 Audi R8 LMS GT3. And he said it took him time to come to grips to it, but of course we saw him on the top step of the podium back at Suzuka. And it was Suzuka, wasn't it? It was back at Suzuka. He was very happy, and he felt he was finally coming to grips with the performance of the car. And a nice job for Frankie Cheng there. And he's got his teammate, the championship points leader, coming up under his rear wing very, very soon.
You're absolutely right, was Suzuka. Round 4 of the championship. He also got an extra point for pole position in that race. So he's certainly back to when he's on it. He's very, he's right up there. It's a very, very competitive field this year. Frankie currently.
That's the replay of that start where they had a bottleneck and the contact that pushed. Frankie, that may not end well after this race. The race stewards may take a look into that and think that was an unfair move. We're not quite sure. We can't preempt anything, but still, he's going to want to battle on. I mean, it was over position. It's on the exit of the corner. There wasn't really a lot of room on that exit, and he was trying to work his way past Martin Rump. And you just never know. I mean, racing incidents do happen. And certainly these guys are very respectful of each other. They're not about to try and turn each other around. We have seen that towards the end of some of the championships, but certainly not in dramatic fashion. It has been more over fighting on the same piece of real estate as Frankie Chung is still holding down position number 3.
That's right. They are very fair drivers, although I think if you ask the stewards, sometimes the drivers do always, every single time, see every incident through their own lens. So sometimes there's some disagreement, shall we say, behind the scenes, but that just is the nature of these competitive drivers in racing.
Well, it certainly is, and you're right, they have been very, very fair. Although having said that, we think they're very, very fair, and you rightly state that the stewards have a different view at the end of some of the races. Certainly looks fairly laid back, but there's a lot going on behind the wheel. Interestingly, I reckon the weather conditions are getting worse. We're into the probably the final third now, you would say, of this race. There's almost 10 laps down in the books, and Dries Vanthoor, well, he just doesn't seem to be fazed by anything that anybody can throw at him, including Mother Nature. And the battle really is now over position number 2 in this race.
Well, Sean, you mentioned Dries Vanthoor there, and obviously he comes from a very strong racing family, as you touched on before. But what about his recent form that he's been showing over in Europe?
Oh, the Blancpain Sprint Series over there, very, very competitive. The most recent round in Hungary, dominated. Practice, qualifying races. I think the only thing he missed out on was the fastest lap in one of the races, but aside from that, he really did push very, very hard. So on a steep learning curve, he's 18. Let's just consider that he hasn't been racing all that long. I mean, by contrast, you'd say Alessio Piccarello and Martin Rump in their early 20s were veterans now of competition. They've been in this a little while, and certainly Vanthoor is in the mix. But also, when you consider this is a championship, we're getting towards the twilight of this 2017 season. And Alessio Piccarello showed last year he won only one race, lost the championship by a single point. He's a calculating driver. He also knows that he is in championship hunt, and the Dries Vanthoor may take maximum points, but that doesn't impact his championship. He has a long lead over a bigger group of drivers. It doesn't matter whether Vanthoor wins every race for the rest of the season, the last 4 races. It's not going to impact Alessio Piccarello's championship.
And it is worth just noting here that he's not a guest driver. He will, if he wins this race, get the 25 points, and that will shift everyone else down the standings. So I guess fewer, if it stays like this, fewer points up for grabs. Perhaps that also plays to Alessio's advantage, because his title rivals, or his main rivals at this stage, will be getting slightly fewer points if they're able to finish ahead of him in this race. But at this point, it's reasonably mathematical.
Well, as you say, it's 47 points lead. If you win and take pole position, you get 26 points. So, okay, let's just go back to wins. First, 25 points. Second, 18 points. Third, 15 points. So you take that 25 to 18 advantage out, the 7 points, it cuts down to 3 or 2 points for the next lot down the order. So that does make a big difference in what impact that will have in a 47-point deficit. So I think Alessio Piccarello is taking that on board. He'd love to win every race. He's admitted that before, but what's the point? What does it gain him in the long run? He wants to win this championship.
Well, it's worth just stressing his consistency as well. He's won 3 of the 6 races, but the worst he's finished is 4th position out of those 6 races. So he's always picking up a decent amount of points, even when he's not winning.
He did that last year. We saw that last year. He went all the way down to, I think, the 3rd last round of a 12-round season in 2016. He hadn't won a race, but he was leading the championship points. Then he took that final step, took a victory in Taiwan, did the now famous Usain Bolt on the roof of his Audi, and that's now his signature move. He's Captain Cool, there's no denying that. Be a very smart young driver, and this will work very well for his championship. But hey, how's the driver in the number 2 car? No one can touch him. so far this weekend. It's a very, very good run for the WRT run Castrol Racing entry of Dries Van Thor. Never deny the 41-year-old Alex Young. He's there in position number 2. He's always in this. We talked about in 18 starts he's been on the podium 11 times. This will be 19 starts, and in all likelihood he'll have been on the podium 12 times. So very nice job for him. Very close to the final lap. Final lap board not quite out yet. Let's work out the calculations. 14 laps was the scheduled race distance. It's also timed, so 30-minute race. It's likely we'll get there based on laps rather than time. There's no safety cars, which is a very good thing. No big incidents, apart from the fact that poor old Martin Rupp was turned around in that early stanza of the race.
And with those 3 cars that we've been looking at there, with Alex in second, Frankie in third, and Alessio in fourth, you just think that Alessio, is not saying he's eased off, but he's just not quite in touch to make a move on Frankie here. Probably happy to pick up again. 4th place point, that's 12 for the championship. That will do his chances of getting this title, which has got to be his priority. No harm whatsoever.
Well, with one less race and only 75 points then on offer, it's really going to play into his hands. So he's not going to be too worried about Dries Van Thor. He's not doing anything dramatic. Conditions are a little bit slippery. Nobody's doing anything particularly dramatic. It's been relatively processional, because we saw that contact between Frankie and Martin Rupp, and also the earlier stoush between Alex Young and Martin Rupp. But outside of that, they've just been very, very consistent. You see a little bit squirrely under brakes there into turn 11 for the FAW entry of Frankie Chung, followed by the black and day glow yellow car, the MGT entry from Absolute Racing driver Alessio Piccirillo, the championship points leader, the man we have talked about so much this season. Unusual to see him back down the order in position number 4, but again, this will be his 2nd worst result. He's 4th once before this year, but amassing points. He's amassing points. That's what it is all about. Martin Rupp has been struggling because he's been unable to string things together. You see him at the top of the screen, still circulating. It's Jeffrey Lee back there behind this lot. Mitch Gilbert's now dropped back to KOU, so he may have had a few dramas. David Chen's moved forward in the TSRT entry up into position number 6.
And Mitch Gilbert, of course, is the man currently in 2nd in the championship, so it may be that he loses that 2nd spot to Frankie Chung, but that will mean Alessio widens his advantage even more at the top of the championship, even finishing in 4th position. So again, consistency, consistency, consistency. And then going back to the history of the Cup, Adderley Fong several years ago, he was finishing on the podium with very, very few wins and got the title that way. So historically, we've seen it, and it's worth stressing. You know, the drivers always say that they're all about the wins. If you can just keep picking up those points, that's what gets you the titles.
They're all about the wins until the championship's looming, and they may not have won one. I know, we'll talk last year again with Alessio Piccirillo. He was actually personally frustrated. He said on a number of occasions to both of us towards the middle stages of last season that he would be disappointed to have won the championship as a racer without having won a race. In the end, he won a race, lost the championship by a single point, but only to a man who'd won 4 races and only just over a man who'd won 3 races. It's not always about having to take victory. It's about amassing a championship, and certainly drivers like Alex Young. There's a prime example of a driver who can win championships. He's won a couple of those just by a single point. Andre Couto was one of the notables. Alessio Piccirillo was another, and so too Frankie Chung. So it is tight at the top. Well, this year, this man on screen in the MGT team by absolute entry, Alessio Piccirillo, he really has been the standout, and he had a monumental lead at the midpoint of the season. And he looks to be able to carry that through as we get to round 8. Of course, make sure you join us online still with www.audi-r8lmscup.com online, and we will stick with this as the season progresses through to the final round at Zhejiang in China in a couple of weeks' time.
So, Sean, really 2 big incidents from the race today. That start was pretty dramatic with a lot of battling, and then, of course, the incident with Martin Rupp slipping out of those top positions. Other than that, positions haven't changed too much. Dries Van Thor, the man on screen there, has started from pole position, and he hasn't looked back since. And then we have, with Rump slipping out from 2nd, Alex Young and Frankie Chung have moved up from 3rd and 4th to 2nd and 3rd. This is a look back further down the field.
Yeah, that is Jeffrey Lee on right of screen, Biran Bhakti on left of screen. That's unusual to see Jeffrey dropping back that far. Usually you expect to see him a little bit further forward in the field. The veteran in the J-Fly entry, one of the most experienced campaigners. See the flashing light? That is push to pass, and they're using it feverishly. 585 horsepower in GT3 form is the Audi R8 LMS GT3. Take 50 from that to just lower the engine management system with the ECU, and you will find that you can then dial that 50 horsepower back with the push to pass. So 5 of them to use for the pro drivers. The AMs get to use 10, and the AM Plus drivers, or the AM Plus drivers rather, get to use 10. That is Jeffrey Lee. And the AM drivers, Biran Bhakti, he's leading the championship, will take over the reins as the champion in that class from the man in front of him here, Jeffrey Lee, this year, if he can manage to put the full season together. And they get 15 in the AM division, so 3 times as many as the pros to use as push to pass.
Well, the green car there, number 99, David Chen. Just a word about him from his performance this year, Sean.
Has really been quite good. Turned up for round 3 of the championship at Suzuka, and had done a very, very nice job on his debut. Admitted that he looked at drivers like Marchi Lee, Sean Dong, and certainly Alex Young as being icons in the Asian region. And he was able to race with them at Suzuka, and he thought it was absolutely fantastic. He enjoyed being involved, and then he said, I was a little awestruck to start with. I allowed them room to race me and take positions away, and I wouldn't quite push because it was a Marchi Lee or a Sean Dong. He said, then I thought, you know what, I'm here to race, I'm battling with them, I can compete with them, I'm not going to leave the door open, I'm going to go in hard.
He got a bit emotional there, didn't he? It was like, you know, driving for him, that this generation that he's grown up watching racing, and he's just in his early 20s, and feels that, you know, someday soon, hopefully, he will be taking over the mantle from them and pushing the boundaries of Chinese motorsport. But to race in the same with basically his heroes, I think was a big moment for him.
Well, certainly I think, and I said it earlier in the program, he is one of the next generation of stars in China, and we look forward to him continuing on in the Cup for season 2018. But certainly the TSRT team, aided by WRT, have done a very, very good job this year. In fact, we were looking to have 2 cars this weekend, but unfortunately, through a logistical exercise, we're unable to get the second car onto the circuit, but they are certainly an emerging team in Chinese motorsport.
So Alessio just with the odd wipe of the windscreen wipers, the others seem to have switched it off. That gives you an idea of what the track condition is like at the moment. It hasn't really affected the race too much.
No, but this is where it gets uncomfortable for the drivers because the grip levels aren't great, and you don't know if it intensifies whether or not there is going to be an issue with the grip levels, and that could cause a late spin, a position change or something like that. You're just not sure exactly how that one's going to play out.
And it's just another thing for these drivers to be thinking about. It's, of course, a physical challenge in the cars, just a 30-minute sprint race. But also mentally, they've got so much to think about in terms of position in the race, position in the championship, the push to passes and the strategies, how they're going to use that. And then if you're thinking, well, do I need different tyres? Do I need to have the windscreen wipers on? It's just an extra element to be weighing on their minds.
I don't think they worry so much about things like what they need to do to get the car right. I'll throw you under the bus, I don't mind. I think it's, well, as Alessio Piccarello is trying to make a big move now. You had the push to pass go. He may well have enough left to go up the inside, and he's got 0 left. Frankie's got 0 left. That's it. Push to pass is now out of the equation. Up to 3rd position now is Alessio Piccarello. I think the bigger problem is your memory of what the track surface is like lap by lap increases, obviously, but if the condition of the circuit changes dramatically, that's the thing that catches you out. I don't know so much that the driver programs themselves to be aware of that. They're always pushing hard, but they are hoping that they can feel seat-of-the-pants driving. That's the way most motor racing drivers would describe it. Seat-of-the-pants driving, to feel that grip level as they go into the corner. So that's the one thing that will be challenging them now.
Well, Sean, just a moment ago we were saying that they were settled into the positions, and now we've got Alessio into position number 3 onto the podiums. He's timed that absolutely perfectly, hasn't he? From a strategic point of view, just delaying and holding on to that one push to pass, and then being able to use it perfectly to get Frankie towards the closing stages of this race. And is looking, and unless something dramatic happens here, that he will be on the podium once again.
Well, Alex Young's the one that has just done the quickest sectors of the race over that last lap, and that's moved him to, well, he's still 3.5 seconds down from Dries Van Thor. 2:07.6 last time round, 2:07.9 for the race leader. You look at the times for Alessio and Frankie, behind them, they're in the 2:08s and the low 2:09s. But certainly the grip level has been the issue for them. Sadly, Martin Rump has, in the end, conceded and had to pull into pit lane. So he will be back fighting tomorrow. But for the champion racing team, that has not done their championship a great deal of good. KOU's doing a good job too. Of course, he has been here on the podium at Shanghai in the past. We haven't seen a lot of the Audi Korea driver in the last season or so. Certainly been on the top step in the past, or sorry, on the podium in the past. Hasn't made the top step yet in his career with the Cup, but certainly has been a regular competitor and a great guy to have in the garage too. Certainly keeps the mood light.
Certainly, he's down at ninth position in this year's championship, but you know that out on the track, if you're battling with him, is not always an easy place to be, and this is a replay of Alessio's perfectly timed move on Frankie Chung, just using that last push to pass, Sean, as you mentioned, to go past the Chinese driver and into the third and final podium position.
Yeah, that's what he needed to do. It's amassing points again. It was nothing dramatic. He also knew, and he said this in the past when he's been battling on the first turn against his teammates, that it's interesting you make that acknowledgement. 5 push to pass, still less for Dries Van Thor, but nobody's pushed him. He hasn't needed to use them. They'll be pretty disappointed when they see that at the end of the race. He drove away from us and he didn't use the extra 50 horsepower. How good is this?
He might have forgot that he had them.
He's just sitting comfortably up there at the front of the field. But certainly Alessio knows that his teammates aren't really going to push him. They've kind of conceded he's going to be the champion this year, and he may fire up the inside of a Mitch Gilbert or a Frankie Chung and know pretty much with certainty that they're not going to close the door on him and allow him to make that position change, because this is for a championship. Frankie will admit that he's not in the championship hunt. I don't think the team would have asked him to move over, but he certainly would have thought about the fact that, well, this is Alessio's championship. Him finishing third as opposed to fourth could actually be a very good thing. So we'll just let that position change happen.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you say that. I'm not sure Mitch Gilbert, for example, earlier in the season would have agreed, and they were very competitive, particularly those three. And it's worth mentioning that we've spoken before on the show, Sean, that within the different service teams, drivers share that data. And that's been a huge advantage for Alessio, particularly early in the season. He's getting the data from people like Mitch Gilbert, very, very competitive. Some of the others haven't been pushed by their teammates to that extent, and that just gives them, as a team, an edge over some of the others.
Well, there's no real surprise then that the top 3 in the championship are absolute racing entries, is it? Alessio Picciarello's leading from Mitch Gilbert. Okay, that's an OD Racing supported team. And Frankie Chung in position 3. That's 3 teams from Absolute Racing. Now, we have to also explain that in the service teams, there's Phoenix Racing Asia, there is Absolute, there is the KCMG team, and also the
WRT.
Thank you. Why did I have a mental blank over that? There's too many letters. It's got to confuse me as we look at the last lap board in. But certainly the most experienced, and have been here right from the start in the first season of the Cup in 2012, is Absolute Racing, and they are using that data to their best extent, and it's working for drivers like Alessio and Mitch. They feed off each other, and also Frankie. He has used that to great effect this year.
Well, here comes a procession of the last lap from Lawrence Dries, I should say.
Freudian slip.
The younger brother, Dries Van Thor, will go back to his car in a moment. And when he got out of qualifying, wasn't actually 100% sure that he qualified in pole position. I'm pretty sure he knows that he's won this race, though.
I'm pretty certain he does know that he's won this race. In fact, I'd be wondering whether he thinks there's anybody else in this race, because he hasn't really been troubled right from the outset. KOU and David Chen from TSRT battling hard. This is a little bit further down in the order. This is for position number 7. David Chen currently holding down that position, and another stellar drive from him. A mature drive, I've said that before. He's only a young man, 21 years of age, and he's driving with great maturity for this team. And this is what the region needs, another good, strong Chinese driver early in his career that's doing everything right. Fast when he needs to be, very sensible, and certainly the face of the future. And hard on the throttle there. KO's really pushing him, and I'd say KO's loving this. We'll see whether there's a dive down to turn 11. I don't think there will be, as Mitch Gilbert closes in again on Sean Thong. This is the battle for position number 5, and they are still in this championship hunt. The order will change. Mitch Gilbert was second on 79 points. Frankie third on 77. 72 points for Alex Young and 71 for Sean Thong as we get to
Oh, and
the
he's
final
used a couple of
stage.
push to passes there, down to 3.
Maybe he wants to extend that lead. Maybe he wants the fastest lap. He missed out on it at the last event of Blancpain GT, so he might be looking forward to that. This should be checkered flag time for Dries Van Thor. And back to the top step for the Castrol Racing team, and for WRT, a nice victory for them. Second across the line is Alex Young, and third, the championship points leader. This won't have done him any harm at all, because his main rivals have again finished behind him, with the exception of Alex Young. Frankie Cheng across the line in fourth, Sean Thong, Mitch Gilbert. David Chen managed to hold out KOU on the final run to the line. And Dries Van Thor, by the look of the timing monitor, 46-second final sector, fastest final sector of the race. Sun Jing Zhu in the number 3 entry for Absolute Racing and the Milestone team. He has taken advantage of that AM battle with Burrit Birambaki. That is positions 9 and 10. Jeffrey Lee a little bit further back than we would have expected to see, the J-Fly team boss, one of the most experienced campaigners in the field, and probably done more races in the Audi R8 LMS Cup than anybody else in the field.
Now, you mentioned that fastest lap time, and at this point it's just really for a bit of pride amongst the drivers. In previous years in the Cup, the fastest lap time did set the field for tomorrow's race, the second race of the weekend, but now we have the situation where we have 2 separate qualifying sessions in the morning and then the race later that day. So join us again tomorrow and find out what has happened in Sunday's qualifying session ahead of round 8, which will be around a similar time tomorrow.
And again, keep up with all the action that goes on behind the scenes. You can get all the links through the Audi R8LMScup.com website, and plenty of social media content in both Chinese and English for all the fans to keep tabs on as we get down to just 3 rounds left now in the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup. And what a stellar job from Dries Van Thor. This isn't going to do his stock in world motorsport too much harm at all, is it? It'll be a little bit of frustration, I think, there potentially for Alessio Piccarello, because he has been the coming man, the real star of the 2017 season. So he was the one that was hoping that this could work very well into his favour, but an 18-year-old's turn up and really just taken the thunder from him this weekend.
No longer the top Belgian in the field.
Indeed, no longer the top Belgian.
Certainly not on today's performance, but of course Alessio will have that healthy lead in the championship.
Absolutely.
But with Van Thor doing so well in Europe, you can be absolutely sure, as he said, that his rivals over there, his competitors, will be keeping an eye to see how he does in Asia. And of course the Cup, after the years that it's been established, it's getting an increasing reputation around the world, with a lot of Europeans coming over and doing well here.
We haven't seen a lot of emotion from the young Belgian so far this weekend. It's a little bit of sadness that his equipment had been caught at the airport. He was trying to find ways to buy new clothes and what fashion he'd get that would replace the clothes that had gone missing. But he picked that back up again yesterday and did a very nice job. So let's just see. Do we have a signature move? Do we have a new signature move this weekend here at Shanghai International Circuit?
Well, he's a pretty humble guy. At least he was talking to him earlier. I think he'll be fairly restrained, but we'll see. And be looking forward to hearing what he has to say as well.
Nice job.
Certainly happy with the car, as you can see, and that is one advantage that he has. He is very familiar with this machine.
Cool. The customary handshake and congratulations for a job very well done. For the Absolute Racing team, well, not too bad for them. First, third, and second for Phoenix Racing Asia's reigning champion, Alex Young. We'll hear from Sophie and the podium place getters before too much longer.
And good to see 3 service teams in the top 3. It's not something that we've seen this year so far.
You are in fact correct. WRT, Absolute Racing and Phoenix Racing Asia. Sorry, I was a little sidetracked by that comment. You were right. I was wrong.
Doesn't often happen.
Big
Sean,
enough man to admit that I made an
much.
error. And there you go. So the fans all racing down. Good support here at Shanghai International Circuit, as always, for the Audi R8 LMS Cup. So we heading down to Sophie. She is with the winner of round 7, Dries Van Thor.
Dries, congratulations to taking the win here in Shanghai, as well as what a fantastic race from pole to win. At the same time, a clean race. So score your debut in Audi R8 LMS Cup.
Well, for the moment, I think 10 out of 10 for Saturday. Let's hope we can get out of 10 out of 10 on Sunday as well. But we will see. It was a difficult race. It was starting to rain in the start, so it was really tricky in the beginning. We had to do a lot of playing with the ABS and traction control. But as soon as you found it a good position, then I could manage the gap. In the beginning, I'd pull away a bit, but then Alex, and when it was starting to rain properly, he closed the gap a bit. I was a little bit scared. It was the first time on Shanghai, first time in the rain on slicks, so it was a bit tricky. But as soon as it dried up, I just could go back to my normal rhythm and get a gap and just control the gap. And yeah, really happy.
Thank you so much. Congratulations once more. And now it's our time back to our paddle.
Thanks, Sophie. Well, it's interesting to hear what he had to say there. And, you know, we were talking about the weather. It sounds like it definitely had more of an effect than perhaps it looked from our point of view.
Well, he mentioned the word rain. I thought it was a light drizzle, but certainly they're the ones out there having to deal with that, and he did a very good job of controlling the car. Again, all the way up until the end of the race, he still had his full quota of push to pass remaining, so that was a very impressive run. Sophie's down there now with the man who was the runner-up, and that is five-time winner Alex Young.
Alex, with no waiting in your car, is second place the best result for you so far? At the same time, how did you do so many good defensive mode during the whole race?
Yeah, it was quite exciting, especially first few laps. Van Tor was very quick. You know, I think we were about the same pace, and obviously once Martin hit me on the second, third corner, the car didn't quite feel the same after that. But you know, it was still fine. But it was a lot of fun, you know, because the conditions kept changing. One lap, first corner be wet, next corner be dry, and you're like, should have carried more speed. Then the next lap you carry more speed, and suddenly it's wet. So it was very tricky.
Keep the status and see you tomorrow. Yeah. And now our time back to the paddle.
Well, he said the phrase, when Martin hit me. I'm pretty sure if we ask Martin later, he'll probably have a slightly different opinion of that particular incident, but it was one of the main talking points of the race, Sean.
Well, that's racing, isn't it? They're not here to build sandcastles. They're here to go after championship points, and they will inevitably make contact, especially in the tighter parts of the circuit. And you throw in slippery track conditions, and there's not really much chance something won't happen. The good thing about that, of course, was that they managed to get through to the finish, and no serious drama, unlike what we'd seen at the closing stages of the 2016 season, notably that big accident for Frankie Chung.
Well, we can go down to Sophie on the grid, who is with the third place driver, Mr. Alessio Picariello.
Alessio, 50 kg in your car, and you did a fantastic fight with Frankie Chen. So would you like to share with us, especially on that part?
Well, it was raining in the beginning, so that was quite tricky, but I love this kind of condition. But yeah, with 50 kilos on board, it's never easy, and especially on braking. So when it's even more slippery, it's even harder to stop the car. But I really wanted that podium, so I saw I was a bit quicker than Frankie. And yeah, I was once close to him, so I knew I had to do the move directly. Once I still had 2 push to pass left. So yeah, I gave it all, and it went well, and yeah, pretty happy with third place. But we want more, so we will work overnight for tomorrow's race.
Good luck for you, Alessio. Thank you so much. And now it's our time back to our panel.
Well, Sean, you know, it's interesting to hear him say that he really wanted that podium position. We talked about it's possible, as Martin Rump showed last year, to win with the 50 kgs in the car, but it's not often happened. And so realistically, I think third position was a pretty good result for Alessio with that extra weight.
Let's take a look back to the highlights of round 7 of the championship here from Shanghai International Circuit. We saw that great start from Dries Van Tor, of course, in the drag race down to turn 1 with Martin Rump, who started alongside. Martin Rump coming into this, 3 wins from the last 4 starts, but Dries Van Tor, he missed practice 2 completely. Hadn't seen Shanghai up until Friday morning. And how's this? He's out at the front. The reigning champion, the black and red car, the Audi R8 LMS entry of Alex Young. He fought hard too, tried to go around the outside. He was as close as anybody got to the race lead outside of Van Tor. Went around the outside down at turn 6. And then we had this incident going down to turn 14 as we had a little bit of contact. There was a bit of a concertina effect. Alex Young balked, That forced Martin Rump to back off, and then that allowed Frankie Cheng to jump up the inside, and then that contact on the exit because there was just nowhere to run off. Alessio Picariello under a little bit of duress this weekend because he wasn't quite there pace-wise this weekend. But out of that, as he has done all year, he managed to eke out a podium finish. Big battle there with Sean Thong and Mitch Gilbert, the OD Racing entry. Of course, Sean Thong driving for Phoenix Racing Asia. KOU in a battle. This is further back behind. David Chen in the TSRT entry actually got ahead of Mitch Gilbert at one stage, and Gilbert was able to take the position back in the OD Racing machine. They had a great battle behind Sean Thong. It was 4 cars in at one stage. KOU hanging off the tail end of this, a little bit further back for Jeffrey Lee, and not a bad start.
There was one stage in the race where we thought that the positions had pretty much settled down. Jeffrey Lee there, number 7, ahead of Buren Bugdati, and then, of course, Alessio Picariello was just sitting on that final push to pass that he had, and we'll see in just a moment how he used it to perfection to sneak up into the podium positions.
There's too many letters in the alphabet, isn't there?
There are,
it's
one or two,
complicated.
yeah.
26, in fact. Anyway,
20,
this was
28 when I get involved.
Jeffrey Lee battling with Buret Birembaki. These the reigning AMP champion and the champion-elect, of course, Thailand's Buret Birembaki, trying to work his way forward in this race, and in the end he got inside the top 10, which was a good result for them. And Jeffrey Lee, well, I would say now that he has more starts in this series in the 6 seasons of the Cup than any other driver. I think we're up to 63 starts now in the books. 22 of those have been won, of course, by Alex Young. Dries Van Thorp untroubled up front. In the end, he had to use a little bit of his push to pass because the weather started to become a little bit of an issue. Sean Thong coming under fire a little bit there from Mitch Gilbert, and the TSRT entry of David Chen. And KOU still there in that pack. As we say, that was a 4-way battle over the closing stages of this race. And hard on the throttle as he came under fire from KOU was David Chen. Mitch Gilbert and Sean Thong had managed to open up a little bit of a gap, but nothing to do, or nobody had anything they could do about Dries Van Thorp, and he went on to claim victory. Alessio Picariello, the championship points leader, gave him some valuable points and another podium finish.
And it does set up tomorrow's race very nicely, and you have to think that he's been so quick, Mr. Dries Van Thorp, all weekend, that he's going to be strong again qualifying the race, but he will have that 50 kgs, and that's going to be an extra element, and perhaps bring the rest of the field back into play.
Well, I don't know. We saw another hot-shot young driver last year do exactly the same thing here at Shanghai. That man, Martin Rump, took 50 kilos into the second race here, the 12th round of the championship. He took back-to-back wins. So will it really matter? It depends on what the weather may contribute tomorrow. And it depends on where he qualifies. Of course, that is coming back tomorrow morning to set the grid for round 8 of the championship.
Well, it's been fun to have this extra element injected into the championship with 2 race weekends to go with the young Belgians. We can go down now to the panel to see the presentation.
No big leap here for Alessio Picariello this time. He's on the bottom step of the podium. That is a young driver who pushes very hard, feeling probably less than happy with himself that he hasn't taken the win, but he really wasn't in the position to do that. He was a little bit behind the 8 ball. Alex Young, not quite accustomed to being on position 2, 22-time winner in 62 race starts in the Cup. It's a very impressive record. But he's second, he's on the podium. How about this for a debut? First race in, never seen the circuit before. Thank you very much, completely untroubled. He said he was a little bit scared at one stage that he had Alex Young behind him, and the weather was getting a little bit slippery. He's done a great job.
There seems to be some genuine applause there from Alex. I think he's genuinely impressed by the youngster.
I think they are all impressed. They're used to now. They've been accustomed to the man on right of screen, Alessio Picariello, dishing out a real punishing with the efforts he's put into the 2017 season, and certainly what he did in 2016. He took the fight right up to the established stars, being Alex Young and Marchie Lee and Frankie Chung. But they've been accustomed to that. Dries Van Thorp really has set tongues wagging up and down pit lane because he has done an incredible job this weekend. Jim Ye from China GT Championship. Be very happy to give Alessio Piccarello the top trophy, because he, of course, drives for the MGT team, supported by the operation from Golden Port. And we will see the trophies presented. I'm sure there will be some sprayed champagne. We'll get down to the AM Plus and the AM Division winners.
He is just about legal to drink it. Mr. Van Thor. It wouldn't be in the States, of course, but anyway, he's got another race to focus on tomorrow, so I don't think he'll be partaking too much.
He does, and I think a lot of these teams will go back and do a bit of troubleshooting and work out just what they're going to be able to do to stop Dries Van Thor from doing the double tomorrow afternoon. But after 2 o'clock, make sure you join us live online, on social media, and on Facebook.
And Alessio Piccarello, you think, probably is going to, he doesn't want the spotlight taken away from what's been a fantastic championship for him so far, so he's probably going to have a long think tonight and think, well, how can he get back on the top step? Particularly with the weight advantage that he will have tomorrow. He'll have just the 20 kilos in his car versus 50 for Dries. So that's, as you said, perhaps not always a huge disadvantage here in Shanghai, but it is a difference, certainly. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out amongst all the other things.
A little bit of psychological warfare going on. Belgian code talking, you think, perhaps? maybe Alex is looking for some deciphering, but yeah, what are they going to do about Dries Van Thor? And let's be fair to Alessio Piccarello, what does he need to do about Dries Van Thor? He's in a championship.
Well, he doesn't. You know, he needs to forget about it. It's personal pride that makes him want to win every race, but to get that title, he can finish second to Dries and be very, very comfortable. But all these guys' pride is certainly a big part of their makeup. So, you know, that's what makes them competitive.
They call it the red mist. All sensibility goes completely out the window. David Chen, right of screen, of course, wins the AM Plus again, and that will extend his lead in that championship. And the fastest lap trophy, that great Pirelli cap trophy, porcelain cap, signifies that Alex Young did set the fastest lap in that race, 2:07.305. A little bit off the qualifying times, but again, conditions not ideal. Here's the championship. Champagne, stand back. Dries Van Thor is going to give Alessio Piccarello a dousing. Come on, boys, you need to get your act together. If you're going to fire back something at him, perhaps you could drown him in champagne. But anyway, Dries Van Thor, full credit to him. Hasn't he done a brilliant job? What a debut in the Audi R8 LMS Cup.
And he is allowing himself just a quick sip. So it's good to see. So well, they're certainly happy there, the Belgians, as we sort of intimating there was perhaps a little bit of rivalry, but clearly all good fun down on the podium there.
Well, that's a good thing, and I think it's good to see. Alessio hasn't really been pushed this year, has he? Let's be fair. No one's really forced him to go that next level. And with all these drivers, they want somebody. They want a benchmark that'll make them go the next step. All our drivers, all the series regulars over the last 5 and a bit seasons have had to step up this year to be better, to compete against Alessio Piccarello. Well, now Alessio Piccarello has found somebody to make him go that next step, and that will only make him better. And we've seen him step up to the mark every time. A very talented, very mature young driver, and he will be he will have a big future, like Dries Van Thor in the international motorsport scene.
Well, we can go back down to the podium for the amateur presentations here.
Certainly, there is Burit Birambakti. He is leading the AM division in season 2017. Sun Jingzhu for Absolute Racing. Both these drivers supported by Absolute Racing. Good result for them.
And a creditable 9th place overall finish for Mr. Sun there, ahead of some of his more, perhaps more well-known competitors, but it was a good race for him. As
well, another driver who's been working very closely with, well, in this case, with Frankie Chung. And that has improved performances of both of them. And of course, quite often you will see that Sun Jingzhu will drive alongside Frankie Chung. So they have an opportunity to learn from each other, which is a nice job. Burit Birambakti too, we're talking about him, the man from Thailand, has done a great job. And there are the two of them on the podium. That's a great effort from the two AM division drivers. Good to see that, well, I was going to say good to see all but Lim Kyung Wee, who had taken over the Audi Hong Kong entry of Marchie Lee this weekend, unfortunately, was a DNF. He, of course, would have made up the bottom step of the AM division. So good for those two drivers to add to their championship points. So, a very nice effort so far for Dries Van Thor in a weekend that has been very, very impressive. But
Well,
we're very happy to be joined by another legend of Audi from the family.
Step this way, sir.
Emanuele Pirro, former Le Mans champion. And Emanuele, you've been out here a few times. We often see you come out here. Of course, you raced a lot in WEC here at Shanghai. What did you think of the Cup this time round here today?
I think they had a good opportunity to show their skill, because the condition, I'm sure you talked about it during the race, were by far not the easiest ones. But if you inside feel you're a good driver, you want special condition to prove it. And I think the top three shows the ranking. They started on slicks, and as you know, to keep the temperature on the tire is really critical. So they had the chance to warm them up a little bit at the start, then it started to drizzle, and the one with the most aggressive driving style can have an edge there, because the tire temperature stays a little longer. When the slick tire does not have the ability to keep the temperature, it drops, and then it's going to be really, really a big problem. But I think this was an evidence of how good the whole field was, because basically everybody kept the car on the road. They were all trying hard, and I personally enjoyed really, really much to watch it. I wish I was there, though.
No, all drivers say that. They wish they were back behind the wheel. Now, Emanuele, let me ask you, you talked about the strength of the field with two Belgians on the podium. What does it say about this Asian-based series that some of the top Europeans are coming over here and really helping to raise the level of racing in this part of the world?
No, in fact, I'm smiling because I married a Belgian woman 30 years ago, and so my sons are half Belgium, and we're all very proud. But it is good, because the Far East has been not a racing area of the world for many years, and now they are discovering this wonderful, in my opinion, sport and activity, and slowly but surely the level is coming up. So I personally made my career going to Japan and racing Japan, and now China is going on the same path. So to have a racing driver coming from Europe to here, it's good in many areas. One, it sets a benchmark, but two, it's a good way to interchange information and driving ability. So it's good for both. So the world is same size since it was born, but it's getting smaller and smaller because of many reasons. So I like this.
What do you see, Emanuele, with these young drivers that are coming through? We talk about Dries Van Thor, 18 years of age, Alessio Picciarello, Martin Rump, they're in their early 20s, and they're so good so quickly. It's a little bit frightening. I mean, talking to Martin Rump yesterday, He said, there's an 18-year-old who's now going to try and take your mantle away. You're only 23. This is crazy.
This is a very interesting and complex question. I don't like kids starting so young. I'm president of the Italian Karting Federation, and now they can start at the age of 6. I think it's too early, but this is how the world goes. They definitely show a lot of driving maturity, but at the end of the day, a 17-year-old kid is a kid. He's still going to school. I don't know, when I started car racing at 18, I felt, after a long career in karting, am I ready, am I not ready? The night before the race, I was really asking myself, and the world is changing, but what counts for me is that everybody's racing for passion. I don't like to see people starting their career to become world champion, or to become famous, to become rich. I like when people like to sit on a race car for the pleasure of steering in the best possible way, braking in the best possible way, and then whatever happens, it comes. Too much pressure on the kids, for me, it's not healthy.
You mentioned your own children. Can we expect them to be winning races anytime soon? Your own children, you say?
No. This was
keep them away.
No,
keep them away
this
from
was
the
a
track.
difficult choice. We have an incredible passion at home, but they're both engineers. School has won towards sport. As much as this was really a difficult choice, I love this sport more than anybody else. But I think the chances to make it are very slim. You need a lot of things, and also to assess the ability of somebody is very difficult. And if you don't make it, you haven't studied, and you. So we decided to go on a safe way, address them to engineering. One is working at Sauber Formula One as a performance engineer. The other one has just completed his studies. And engineering was my dream, and it was my plan B. So if I didn't make it as a racing driver, I would have studied engineering. God knows if I could have made it. So I'm personally very happy.
Fantastic.
Do you think that that's one of the things that perhaps maturity doesn't allow some of the younger drivers to do, is to understand perhaps more the dynamics of the cars these days? There's so many intricate things. Your storied career, you worked your way through the cars that developed data and developed suspension changes and things on the fly. Engineers became more prevalent. Is it complicated?
I love your questions. Motorsport has changed a lot. Before, the driver could and had to give a much bigger input, because he was the only way to transfer information from the car to the box, to the engineers. Now there's a lot of data acquisition and a lot of information, so the ability of a racing driver to explain in details what the car is doing is not as important. I remember meetings, Ayrton Senna was an example. His technical debrief were so long. He was describing, I was a McLaren test driver, so I could see it with my own eyes. He was describing to the finest detail how the car was doing, like the engineer was on board. And this is the best way for a good engineer to then find the right tools to make the car quicker. Now all these you can see on the screen on a computer. From the other end, also racing is a lot safer. Tracks are very wide, so drivers can make mistakes without getting injured or stopping the race. Therefore, they can try harder. So 1/10 of a second now is worth maybe like half a second before, because everybody can push the envelope to the very end. I personally like the old ones where if you make a mistake, you pay for it. But
living on the edge. Just to follow up on that point, just talk about how much of an advantage it is within the different service teams here. That you can share data amongst drivers. How much of an advantage it is to have strong teammates?
A very big one. I think nowadays motorsport is easier for the not so good drivers, and it's in a way more penalizing the very good ones, because everything that the very good ones do, it's shared with the others. This is why I said 1/10 of a second. It's worth a lot now, but it is what it is. And one more reason why motorsport, I think, is good at every level is that it gives you the ability to be a better driver for everyday road. And so many accidents happen because people don't know how to handle an emergency situation. So many people lose their lives on the road. And this is why I incentivize people to start with karting, because once you know how to control a car when it loses control, it's a very good life insurance to put it in your pocket. So no one should start motor racing only with the goal of becoming the Formula One world champion. There's also other reasons to do it.
You've had a very experienced and very storied career. What's it mean to you to be, I've used that word, I'm sorry. I keep saying that, I keep reminding Alex Young he's a veteran because he's over 40. I'm saying this with due respect. In your career, Audi has been a big part. What's it mean to be part of the Audi Sport family?
This was, I don't believe in luck, but I have to say this was one of the big lucky strike I had, because I joined Audi at one stage of my career when I was 32, after a long path and after Formula One, at one stage where I could even, some people think about retiring. So when I met first time Dr. Rurik, the boss of Audi Sport, the first thing I wanted to make sure that he understood was that I didn't ask to drive to cash some more money and squeeze the last drop of the fruit of my career. I really wanted to do it. And he understood it, and it worked so well because I did 20 years of, let's say, extra driving with wonderful cars. And this is what I keep saying to my friends and colleagues. I will swap my career with very, very few people, because when you have the ability to drive a racing car that enables to win races in any category, it's a wonderful gift. I've got good friends who did many years in Formula One, 10, 12, 15 years, and never won a Grand Prix. I will not swap my career with them, because being always on the edge, whether it was touring car, then sports cars, but working with the manufacturers who understand your needs and to which you can communicate with the finest technical words, and you can always compete for win. It's an incredible, incredible gift, and this kept me alive for many years, because I won my last Le Mans at 45. Normally at 45 you should walk on crutches, but it kept my motivation so high, and we pushed each other, because we were a team of drivers with Tom Christensen, Frank Miller, Dindo Capello, Alan McNish, same people for many years. We had a strong rivalry and friendship in the same time, and we pushed each other. And I think this was an incredible, recipe of success.
Emmanuel, we can listen to you all day. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Hope to see you again tomorrow. But I know
Your
there are
questions
many
are
people,
really good. So
many
very
people
good.
I'm sure outside want to see you. Thank you very much, and we'll join you again
Thanks,
soon.
Emmanuel.
Thank you. And we'll be back tomorrow for round 8 of the Audi R8 LMS Cup.